Back again. I've been slacking, man. I'm doing this late at night because I've just been lazy. I've been lazy. I've been procrastinating and I've been slacking bad. Anyway, I left off where Devin was forced by, was it Lane, to go wear the fursuit, big fursuit, and at first he didn't like it, but as the time went on, he started to enjoy it. But anyway, where I leave off. Okay. Sorrow and terror over lost parents were forgotten, at least for the time being. They laughed, some with tears still gleaming on their cheeks. They didn't quite dare approach, not while I was doing my clumsy little dance, but they crowded forward. There was wonder, but no fear. They all knew Howie. Those from the Carolinas had seen his afternoon TV show, and even those from far-flung exotic locales like St. Louis and Omaha had seen brochures and advertisements on the Saturday morning cartoons. They understood that although Howie was a big dog, he was a good dog. He'd never bite. He was their friend. He was their friend. I put my left foot in. I put my left foot out. I put my left foot in. I shook it all about. I did the hokey pokey and I took myself around because, as almost every little kid in America knows, that's what it's all about. I forgot about being hot and uncomfortable. I didn't think about how my undershorts were sticking the crack of my ass. Later, I would have a bitch of a headache, but just then I felt okay, really good. In fact, and you know what? Wendy Keegan never crossed my mind. When the music changed to the Sesame Street theme, I quit dancing, dropped to one padded knee, and held out my arms like Al Jolson. Howie! A little girl screamed, and all these years later, I can still hear the perfect noise of rapture in her voice. She ran forward, pink skirt swirling around her choppy knees. That did it. That the orderly crocodile line dissolved. The kids will know what to do, the old timer had said, and how right he was. First they swarmed me, when they knocked me over, then they knocked me over, then they gathered around me, hugging and laughing. The little girl in the pink shirt kissed my snout repeatedly, shouting, Howie, 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 as she did it. Some of the parents who had ventured into Wiggle Waggle to snap pictures were approaching, equally fascinated. I patted my paws to get some space, rolled over and got up before they could crush me with their love. Although just then I was loving them right back. For such a hot day, it was pretty cool. I then noticed Mr. Easterbrook reach into the jacket of his Morish. I read this word yesterday. Mortician suit. Mortician suit. Bring out a walkie-talkie and speak into it. Bless me. All briefly. All I knew was that the Sesame Street music suddenly cut out and Hokey Pokey started up again. I put my right paw in and my right paw out. The kids got into it right away, their eyes never leaving me, not wanting to miss the next move and be left behind. Pretty soon we were all doing the hokey pokey at the intersection of Jelly Bean and Candy Cane. The greenie minders joined in. I'll be goddamned if some of the parents didn't join in as well. I even put my long tail in and my long tail out, laughing madly. The kids turned around and did the same, only with invisible tails. As the song wound down, I made an extravagant, "Come on, kids," gesture with my left paw and advertently yanking my tail up so sh- stringently, I almost tore the troublesome fucker off and led them toward the Howdy House. They followed as willingly as the children of Hamelin followed the Piper, and one of them was crying. That actually wasn't the best day of my brilliant, if I do say so myself, and I do, career as Howie the Happy Hound, but it was right up there. When they were safely inside Howie House, the little girl on the pink skirt stood in the door long enough to wave me a bye bye. I turned around and the world seemed to keep right on turning. When I stopped, sweat sheeted into my eyes, doubling Wiggle Waggle Village and everything in it. I wavered on my back paws the entire performance, from my first hokey pokey moves to the little girl waving bye bye, but only taking 7 minutes 9 tops. But I was totally fried. I started trudging back the way I had come, not sure what to do next. "Son," a voice said, "over here." It was Mr. Easterbrook. He was holding open a door in the back of the Wishing Well snack bar. It might have been the door I'd come through, probably was, but then I'd been too anxious and I'd been too anxious and excited to notice. He ushered me inside, closed the door behind us, and pulled down the zipper at the back of the costume. Howie's surprisingly heavy head fell off my own, and my damp skin drank up the blessed air conditioning. My skin, still winter white, it wouldn't stay that way for long. Rashed out in goosebumps, I took big, deep breaths. "Sit down on the steps," he said. "I'll call for a ride, and then I'll call for a ride in a call for a ride in a minute. But right now, you need to get your wind back. The first few turns as Howie are always difficult, and the performance you just gave was particularly strenuous. It was also extraordinary. Thanks. It was all I could manage. Until I was back inside the cool quiet, I hadn't realized how close to my limit I was. Thanks very much. Head down if you feel faint. Not faint. Got a headache though. I snaked one arm out of the highway and wiped my face, which was dripping. "You kind of rescued me." Maximum time wearing a highway on a hot day. I'm talking July and August, when the humidity is high and the temperature goes into the 90s, is 15 minutes. Mr. Easterbrook said, "If someone tries to tell you different, send them directly to me, and you'll be well advised to swallow a couple of salt pills. We want you summer kids to work hard, but we don't want to kill you." He took out his walkie-talkie and spoke briefly and quietly. 5 minutes later, the old-timer showed up again in his car with a cup of Anakin and a bottle of blessedly cold water. In the meantime, Mr. Easterbrook sat next to me, lowering himself to the top step leading down to the boulevard with a glassy care that made me a trifle nervous. "What's your name, son?" "Devin Jones, sir." "Do they call you Jonesy?" He didn't wait for me to reply. "Of course they do. It's the corny way. And that's all Joyland is, really. A thinly disguised corny. Places like this won't last much longer. The Disneys and Knott's Berry Farms are going to rule the amusement world, except maybe down here in the mid-south. Tell me, aside from the heat, how did you enjoy your first turn wearing the fur? I liked it because some of them were crying, I guess. He smiled. And pretty soon all of them would have been crying, but I stopped it. Yes, you did the hokey pokey, a splinter of genius. How did you know it would work? I didn't. But actually, I did. On some level, I did. He smiled. At Joyland, we throw our hires, our greenies into the mix without much in the way of preparation because in some people, some gifted people, encourages a sort of spontaneity, some spontaneity that's very special and valuable both to us and to our pat, and to our patrons. Did you learn something about yourself just now? Geez, I don't know. Maybe. But can I say something, sir? Feel free. I hesitated, then decided to take him at his word. Sending those kids to daycare at an amusement park, that seems, I don't know, kind of mean. I added hastily, although the wiggle waggle seems really good for little people, really, for little people, little people, really fun. You have to understand something, son. At Joyland, we're in the black this much. He held a thumb and forefinger only a smidge apart. When parents know there's care for their wee ones, even for just a couple of hours, they bring the whole family. If they needed to hire a babysitter at home, they might not come at all, and our profit margin will disappear. I take your point. I take your point, but I have a point too. Most of those little ones have never been to a place like this before. They'll remember it the way they'll remember their first movie or their first day at school. Because of you, they won't remember crying because they were abandoned by their parents for a little while. They'll remember doing the hokey pokey with Howie the happy hound, who appeared like magic, I guess. He reached out, not for me, but for Howie. He stroked the fur with his gnarled fingers as he spoke. The Disney parks are scripted, and I hate that. Hate it. I think what they're doing down there in Orlando is fun pimping. I'm a seat of the pants fan, and sometimes I see someone who's a seat of the pants genius. That could be you. Too early to tell for sure, but yes, it could be you. He put his hands to the small of his back and stretched. I heard an alarmingly loud series of cracking noises. I share your cart back to the boneyard? I think I've had enough sun for one day. My car is your cart. Since Jordan was his park, that was literally true. I think you wear the fur a lot this summer. Most of the young people see that as a burden or even a punishment. I don't. I don't believe that you will. Am I wrong? He wasn't. I've done a lot of jobs in the years since then, and my current editorial gig, probably my last gig before retirement, seizes me in its claws. It's terrific, but I never felt so weirdly happy, so absolutely in the right place as I did when I was 21, wearing the fur and doing the hokey pokey on a hot day in June. Seat of the pants, baby. I stayed friends with Tom and Aaron after that summer, and I'm friends with Aaron still. Although these days we're mostly email and Facebook buddies who sometimes get together for lunch in New York. I've never met her second husband. She says he's a nice guy, and I believe her. Why would I not? After being married to Mr. Original Nice Guy for 18 years and having that yardstick to measure by, she, she she'd hardly pick a loser. In the spring of 1992, Tom was diagnosed with a brain tumor. He was dead. He was dead 6 months later. When he called and told me he was sick, his usual ratchet jaw delivery showed slowed by the wrecking ball swinging back and forth in his head. I was stunned and depressed, the way almost anyone would be, I suppose, when he hears that a guy who should be in the very prime of life is instead approaching the finish line. You want to ask how a thing like that can be fair. Weren't there supposed to be a few more good things for Tom? Like a couple of grandchildren and maybe the long dream of vacation in Maui? During my time at Joyland, I once heard Pops Allen talk about burning a lot. Talk about burning the lot. During my time at Joyland, I once heard Pops Allen talk about burning the lot. In the talk, that means to blatantly cheat the rubes at what's supposed to be a straight game. I thought of that for the first time in years when Tom called with his bad news, but the mind defends itself as long as it can. After the first shock of such news dissipates, maybe you think, okay, it's bad. I get that, but it's not the final word. There still might be a chance, even if 95% of people who draw this particular card go down. There's still that lucky 5%. Also, doctors misdiagnose shit all the time. But bearing those things, there's the occasional miracle. You think that, and then you get the follow-up call. The woman who makes the follow-up call was once a beautiful young girl who ran around Joyland in a flippy green dress and a silly Sherwood Forest hat, toting a big old speed graphic camera. And the conies she braced hardly ever said no. How could they say no to that blazing red hair and eager smile? How could anyone say no to Aaron Cook? Well, God said no. God burned Tom Kennedy's lot, and he burned hers in the process. When I picked up the phone at 5:30 on a gorgeous October afternoon in Westchester, the girl I had become a woman. That girl had become a woman whose voice, blurry with the tears, sounded old and tired to death. Tom died at 2 this afternoon. It was peaceful. It was very peaceful. He couldn't talk, but he was aware. He squeezed my hand when I said goodbye. I said, I wish I could have been there. Yes, her voice wavered, then firm. Yes, that would have been good. You think, okay, I get it. I'm prepared for the worst, but you hold out that small hope, see, and that's what fucks you up. That's what kills you. I talked to her. I told her how much I loved her and how much I loved Tom. I told her, yes, I'd be at the funeral, and if there was anything I could do before then, she should call day or night. Then I hung up the phone and lowered my head and brought my goddamn eyes out. The end of my first love doesn't measure up to the death of one old friend and the bereavement of the other. It followed the same pattern, exactly the same. And if it seemed like the end of the world to me, first causing those suicidal ideations, silly and half-hearted through they may have been. Suicidal ideation, silly and half-hearted though they may have been. Silly and half-hearted though they may have been. And then a seismic shift in the previously unquestioned course of my life. You have to understand, I had no scale by which to judge it. That's called being young. As June wore on, I started to understand that my relationship with Wendy was as sick as Williams Blake's Rose, but I refused to believe it was mortally sick, even when the signs became increasingly clear. Letters, for instance. During my first week I missed shop laws, I wrote Wendy 4 long ones. Even though I was run off my feet at Joyland and came drag assing into my second floor room, and each night with my head full of new information. Now let's go back. As you wore on, I started to understand that my relationship with Wendy was as sick as William Blake's Rose, but I refused to believe it was mortally sick, even when the signs became increasingly clear. Letters, for instance. During my first week at Miss Shoplaw's, I wrote Wendy 4 long ones. Even though I was run off my feet at Joyland and came drag-assing into my second floor room each night with my head full of new information and new experiences, feeling like a kid dropped into a challenging college course, call it the advanced physics of fun. Halfway through the semester, that's what I got in return. What I got in return was a single postcard with Boston comment on the front and a very peculiar collaborative message on the back. At the top, written in a hand I didn't recognize, was this: Winnie writes the card while Rennie drives the bus. Below, in the hand I did recognize, Wendy or Winnie, if you like, I hated it myself. Had written breezily, we is cell girls off a venture to Cape Cod. It's a party. Hoopsie music. Don't worry, I held the wheel while Ren were apart. Hope you're good, W. Hoopsie music? Hope you're